Today we're talking about charisma.
Big hitters, right? People who are in the news a lot, people who get a lot of attention.
A leader who is inspiring, the leader who I might aspire to be like, somebody whose presence is compelling. I think that's kind of one of those qualities.
These people are confident. They can hold a room, right? They have a style that many leaders want to learn from.
They crave attention, and therefore they have developed strategies for getting attention.
Charismatic leaders, they are really present with you. It's almost as if they're reading your mind. They're speaking to your concerns. They know how to make you feel important. Hello, awesome humans.
Hey, I'm Chuck.
And I'm Andrew.
And we are the Mindful Business Alliance. And we are committed to making work suck less.
Or as we like to say, humanizing the workplace.
And today we're talking about, well, a personality quality that a lot of leaders have and a lot of leaders want to have. And that is the quality of charisma. So when you hear charisma, Andrew, well, first of all, does your thinking go to the good stuff or the bad stuff about charisma?
Not gonna lie, when you said charisma, the first thing I went to was cheesy. You know,
Cheesy.
people being cheesy in their way of interacting with people, overdoing it. That was what I went to. So I guess that's the not so good version.
Yeah. Well, I think that for a lot of leaders, there is or especially a lot of emerging leaders, there is a sense of having to perform, like have a performative personality, perform charm, perform charisma, perform influence, and it can get cheesy. It can also get dark.
Well, yeah, I think that's when we have these. You and I've had many discussions about using these kinds of things for good or for evil, right? And so I think if people are using charisma, especially if it's something that people are training themselves in or aiming to get better at, then it's probably a little dark or the intentions are not so good. Versus the people who more naturally have it, which I think is part of the places we want to be exploring today.
And is it something that some people just have and some people don't have?
Well, yeah, you raise a good point. I think when we think about charismatic leaders, we often think of these big hitters, right? People who are in the news a lot, people who get a lot of attention. Elon Musk with his, big opinions and sometimes his hard to listen to interviews, or his, saying the kind of things that maybe people don't expect him to say, or, Steve Jobs, or I'm forgetting his name now, the guy who runs Ryanair. These are folks who have, I think, what a lot of people would say is charisma. It certainly gets them attention, gets them places.
Well, let's look at what are we really talking about when we talk about someone who's charismatic. What are those qualities?
So when I think about someone who's charismatic, I would think of someone who can hold attention, somebody who can get their ideas across, somebody who can create, I would say like a following, but like I want to sort of, put quotation marks around it, like a following, like people who really believe in them, people who really are kind of like, yeah, I'm following this leader in some way. I'm inspired by this leader.
Yeah.
So those are some of the first things that come to mind. Yeah. What about you?
Well, similar. I think a leader who is aspiring and inspiring. That's interesting. Freudian slip. So yeah, a leader who is inspiring, the leader who I might aspire to be like. So a role model, somebody whose presence is compelling. I think that's kind of one of those qualities. If I think about charismatic leaders that I'm interested in, it's somebody I want to listen to.
Right.
So some of these things, and where it intersects with the dark side is I want them to like me. So I think this is where it can get into potential for manipulation and a bunch of darker stuff. I think also there is a stereotype that charisma is a quality of extroversion that, you know, that consequently a leader who is more introverted can't be charismatic. And I would really disagree with that.
There's something you were saying before, Chuck, about their presence, these leaders having presence and their ability to listen, but also you were talking about like wanting them to like you. And I know we talk a lot about executive presence being an essential leadership quality. And I think what you're getting at there is this, these people are confident. They can, I think I used the
Mm.
language before, they can hold a room, right? They have a style that many leaders want to learn from. It can be very compelling. We can be very enduring. Like, I want to spend time with these people. I want them to like me. I want to engage with them. It is something we're drawn to. And where it can also be risky, along with what you were saying before, is if it's an act, if it's a
Mm-hmm.
performance. And I think sometimes when we talk about people being charismatic, we think about these people who are very flamboyant or loud or disruptive or like to challenge the status quo because it gets them attention, not necessarily because it's a good thing.
Well, I think there are a few things that you're bringing up that I think are really key here. One is that they like attention.
Hmm.
They they crave attention, and therefore they have developed strategies for getting attention. And I think that's one of those keys. Sometimes the attention is not good. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
getting attention for misbehaving or doing things that are most people would consider socially unacceptable, and that can be quite compelling. I think there's also an intersection here with something else you brought up, which is confidence. And I think that projecting confidence is compelling. We want leaders who appear confident. And we've seen all kinds of examples of this in our era now of people who confidently say things that pretty much everyone knows aren't true, and their followers like it. So there is something kind of cool about this. Like maybe I don't have to always say things that I verified, but if I say them with enough confidence, I can be compelling.
It's a little worrying, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
almost
it
like
is.
I could go on a training to teach me how to speak more loudly or with a more compelling manner,
Mm-hmm.
and I could essentially win people over with that. It leaves a
And
lasting impact, but it's not necessarily a good one.
no, and in fact, there are trainings for leaders where they teach you to not apologize.
I'm sorry that you felt that way.
Yeah, exactly. We've definitely encountered that in some leaders, right?
I'm
So
sorry
I,
if me. Yeah. Okay. Go on.
yeah,
Go on.
well, constantly apologizing is not a good thing, but never apologizing, come on. I also don't think that that's healthy.
No,
I
no, I
think
don't
for
think that.
leaders to, yeah,
I don't think that falls into charisma. I think that just falls into manipulation.
it kind of goes along with uh, always assuming that I'm right. Like if I'm a leader who's doing this kind of performance, like always assuming that I'm right, acting like I'm right, never apologizing. Again, I think it can be really compelling. I think there is something about that that groups are attracted to, but I don't think it's healthy.
Mm.
So we're talking a lot about the darker side of charisma, and I think it is worth looking there because leaders who have these more narcissistic qualities that create their aura of charisma, they can do a lot of damage. We've seen this. I mean, in history, we've seen this. A lot of damage can be done.
Mm.
And it's important for leaders to have a style that is influential, to have a style that people do want to follow. So there are the brighter sides of charisma as well.
Right. Well, let's take a look at some of those. I know that one of those that you and I are big fans of is listening, right? The ways in which we're listening. And I think it's fair to say that charismatic leaders, they are really present with you. It's almost as if they're reading your mind, they're speaking to your concerns, they know how to make you feel important. They make you feel understood.
Yes. I think that is key. Like, it's important, and I always admire leaders who have this ability to say what everybody is thinking. I think that's really powerful.
Yes.
Now, I also think it's healthier if those leaders are articulating from a more aspirational point of view. Like, if what I'm surfacing and articulating is your complaints and that's all I can do, you might appreciate that I'm articulating your complaints, but I'm not going to inspire you with that.
Yeah.
So, right, if I can also speak to your dreams and your wishes and desires, I think that could be really powerful.
Yeah. And I think, some of the questions around this are how are they doing this, right? And I think the way in which they're listening, as you said,
Mm,
speaking to their dreams, their vision, their values, connecting the dots between the things that aren't working and the things that they want,
mm.
paying attention to them and prioritizing empathy and understanding. I think all of these things are the kinds of things that will help demonstrate genuine listening and have that be a compelling thing for people.
Yeah. Along with listening, I would put presence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting thing, though, the way that the word presence is used a lot of times is, does this person have leadership presence? And sometimes it's judged in a negative way, like this person does not have leadership presence. Where we look at presence, we don't talk about it as a quality that the leader has. We talk about it as an ability, like how present is this leader? When they're giving a presentation, are they reading the room? Are they really here right now? Or are they just thinking about their next PowerPoint slide? So that's where I think presence really matters. If somebody comes into your office and they want to talk to you about something that's important to them, are you really present with them? Or are you thinking about the meeting you just had? Or your next meeting, or the email you want to send? Are you thinking about those things, or are you really there?
I think you nailed it, Chuck. Listening and presence are the kinds of things that will show more charisma in leadership styles. I think these are the kinds of things that will help people to feel seen. They'll help them to feel heard. And we know from our own experience, there's plenty of good research out there, they are more likely to trust and support you if they feel seen and heard.
Yeah, like at least creating a sense that this leader understands what my experience is. This leader wants the best for me and demonstrates that. I think it's really important.
This makes me want to poke around in the sweet spot between what you and I would call vulnerability and overconfidence. So I
Mm,
think I know you speak often of, leaders shouldn't just be bursting into tears or like, vomiting up all of their emotions and everything that's not going well in their lives or whatever. But there is a balance to be held there, right? And again, in the world, in the context of charisma, getting that balance right is probably a great strength, right? This is going to
mhm.
help us be more influential if we are able to operate from a place of strength around these things.
Yeah. So let's take these things separately. So we have overconfidence, which I think can be really attractive at first. Like if I join a company and my new boss is really overconfident, at first I'm kind of like, huh, well, they sure feel like they know their stuff. I can relax because they know where they're going. But if that overconfidence isn't based on anything, I might find out soon that they don't really know what they're doing and that they're just a arrogant jackass or something. Right. So that overconfidence can't really have a lot of lasting power once you start to see, oh, this person really doesn't know what they're doing. They don't really understand things. They just act, they can do the performance of, I know what I'm doing.
Mm.
I can perform smart. I'm not really smart. So that kind of thing. So I think that could be really destructive. Some confidence is warranted. And then we have on the other side vulnerability, which I think also is really important. The part of vulnerability that I think is really helpful is transparency. I was listening to a talk recently by Jensen Huang, the head of NVIDIA,
Mm.
and he talks a lot about letting people experience your reasoning, letting them observe your reasoning as a way of supporting their learning. And I think for leaders to do this, to like have conversations where you're thinking things through out loud, that's really powerful training and mentoring for somebody. So, or even watching you have an experience, like some news comes in that's not pleasant. Maybe you got news of a restructuring, and having employees watch you grapple with that, like, oh gosh, that sounds really hard. And they're watching you for cues like, is this okay? Are we going to be okay? How quickly can you recover from that bad news enough so that you can actually start creating a plan?
Yeah, so these are the moments where a leader is being very present and real, saying something like, "I don't know what we're going to do with this, but let's figure it out together," or something like that. Right? There's an honesty to it. There's a sincerity to it because they're saying, actually, in this moment, I don't know, but they're showing strength and optimism with this idea of we'll figure this out together. Right? So it
Yeah.
humanizes the leader. It humanizes the individuals that are working with them, keeps communication channels open. I think it also shows that the leader is open to new insights. They're open to hearing from people. There's an invitation there.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Like rather than I'm the only one who actually knows anything here, or I'm the only one who can get this fixed, like I actually know we can do this. So leaders coming from that we place, I think
Mm.
is also really powerful.
Mm. So
Trusting
these,
that your team has it. Yeah.
yeah, no, this is great. So these are great examples of vulnerability. When they're balanced with commitment and confidence, they really can inspire and unify a team.
I sometimes joke about this, like it's okay to show emotions. It's okay to be real. It's okay to have a bad day, but you really, it's irresponsible to break down to the point that your employee feels like they need to hold you until until you stop crying. Like there is a balance there.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Joking. Yeah, this is when the staff have to have the tissues handy all the time.
Yeah, you don't want that
Mm.
situation,
No. So
right?
we're talking here about like supporting your team and supporting your people like a boss, right? But also getting the balance of that right.
And part of supporting the team is advocating for them. So if they actually can observe this on some level, they know that you are looking out for them, you know that their needs are important to you, that you're taking a stand for them with upper management, that's also quite compelling. I think the other side to it is also highlighting the team's achievements, sharing the recognition is another part of that I think positive charisma. Because if as a leader, and we hear this all the time about employees being devastated when the boss takes credit for the employee's achievement or their idea. It's so destructive when leaders do this. And I know why they're doing it, but it's not good. It really hurts people. So to see a leader who says, Andrew had this great idea, and I want to shepherd this through a development process because I think it's really powerful. Then I've highlighted Andrew, and I end up looking better because it's very attractive to compliment other people.
It's reminding me of a gig you and I did last year with a team where one of their regional CEO was going to join us halfway through the week, and people spoke. His name came up many times during that week before he arrived, and you could tell that he was respected. You could tell that people were really looking forward to meeting him, and it was so interesting watching the interactions between him and them, because he was doing exactly the kinds of things you're talking about here. And I've watched him do it since, and following him on social media too. And it's kind of like his default position is, look how great these people are. And it is compelling. And I know you and I have watched some of his, the leaders that work for him do the same. And it's kind of a default position in that culture. Like, we're always looking to celebrate people publicly. Um, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. So yeah, another example of charismatic leadership, supporting your team really and doing it with sincerity, being their biggest cheerleader.
I noticed this with, I think I'm thinking about the same person you were just referring to. And I noticed that when we say to him, you have created something really amazing here, he will always say, I have a great group of people working with me.
Yes, it's true.
Like, that is the first place he goes when we give him any kind of recognition or compliment. He will always, always point that adulation to the team.
It's true.
So one other area that I think is also really important here, which is, we often hear this phrase, leaders bring the weather. So I'm always curious about, like, what is the weather that these leaders are creating, on a day-to-day basis, and what is the climate that ultimately is forming from those shifts in day-to-day weather. And I think it's important to create a workplace that is fun. People enjoy working there. And they enjoy working there for a number of reasons. I think one is they're not scared. Sometimes leaders who have these big personalities can also create a lot of fear. And if your workplace is mostly infused with fear, it's not fun. It's not pleasant to work there. So actually creating a lot of safety is good. Having the team feel appreciated, recognized, setting the tone for actually playful, humorous interactions can be really important.
Yes, Chuck, I love it. Leaders bring the weather. And I think this is a great way of just saying they're always setting the example. And I know that you and I have been in, countless workplaces, and you can feel it. You can feel the influence of the leader in the culture. If
Yes.
the, and I say leader, I think we could probably say leaders, just typically the
Yes.
leadership culture. It doesn't take us very long typically to pick up on it. It's sensory. You can feel in the space when you walk in. Do people feel appreciated here? Do they have open, healthy communication, or is it a little toxic? Are people comfortable to go out of their way to make sure that people feel seen and heard, or are they not interested? And those are really good examples of the leader bringing the weather. And so leaders have a responsibility towards the kind of impact they're creating in the environment that they work in.
Yeah. And we always know. One of the best, I always love walking into workplaces, job sites, because I can tell. You can feel what the tone is here. And that tells me what kind of work we're going to need to do with these leaders. You always know.
So
So,
true. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
So, a couple more things here. I think visionary leadership is also important. That a big piece of charisma and a big reason why people want to follow you is they are drawn to the vision that you hold. They understand what the vision is, they know where everything's going, they know what they're contributing to, and they're excited to be part of it. So we talk a lot about this because it is a recognized strength of effective leadership, and many leaders do not go here. They're spending most of their time talking about how to solve problems, which one could argue that that's not even an essential function of leadership.
Right. That is more just working to a plan or a schedule or some kind of strategy or roadmap, which has its place. You're right. But I would tend to agree with you. I don't think it's necessarily the leader's main role. They want to be inspiring people, moving people, giving people a sense of meaning and purpose, something bigger than what they're dealing with right now. It makes me think about John Kennedy's, we choose to go to the moon speech, right? He didn't just outline a vision. He moved the nation, right? That was a kind of an inspiration. It fueled extraordinary efforts. It made people come together over something that was inspiring. Right? And so the same thing can and should be happening in organizations every day, where leaders are aligning their team's efforts towards common goals, a bigger sense of purpose, a bigger sense of meaning, a sense of community and collaboration somehow. Strong vision means that you're much more likely to be sitting in a place of charismatic leadership.
Another one that, again, has dark sides and light sides to it is breaking out of normal ways of thinking. I think one of the things I always find compelling in a leader is they don't just say what everyone else is saying. They're bringing a new perspective or inviting us into a new perspective. They're challenging traditional thinking. They're saying, for example, I think one of the most compelling things a leader can say is the conventional thinking on this is wrong. Here's how we should be thinking of it instead. And I think that when I hear that, and if it appeals to me, I want to follow that leader.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a really great way to inspire a workforce, and it can be really useful, especially for organizations that are struggling, to bring in people who are comfortable doing that. And they need to have a lot of things we've already spoken about, of course, right? They need to have confidence. They need to have presence. But actually being the voice that can say the things that perhaps much of the workforce doesn't feel they can say or feels is never going to change, I think can be very inspiring. Richard Branson, the founder of the Virgin Group, is a great example of this. I mean, I remember reading books about Richard Branson 20, 30 years ago. And even then I was inspired about the ways in which he would just try out new things and push back. And that's become a cultural thing. I don't know if you've ever read his story about getting his first plane off the ground, but they borrowed a plane and broke an engine in their first test flight. And it's like, all right, well, now what? But they figured it out, right? And I think, pushing boundaries, encouraging people to think outside the box. So there is an example of people solving problems, but it's not just for the sake of solving problems, right? It's actually promoting a culture of innovation. It's promoting this idea that we can be driven to try out new things, to achieve breakthroughs that might have been otherwise impossible.
Yeah, and there you're bringing together this idea of being visionary, but also challenging norms, breaking out of old patterns, which I think is an essential. I think is a reason why charismatic leadership exists. Yeah. It's for the sake of evolution.
So true.
So, yeah. All right, I think that's good for now.
Great. Well, it's been fun talking about charisma in leadership with you, Chuck.
Has been fun. All right. Well, everyone, stay safe and stay kind.
And stay human.